Hi, everybody. So we only have an hour, and we're going to do some storytelling 101, and we're going to cover traditional media. So how do you pitch a story to traditional media on behalf of your community league? And then we'll also talk about social media on the other half. So we'll do half and half. It's kind of be fast, but I'll try to slow down. And yell if you need me to slow down. So hi, I'm Joyce. That's my Twitter. Yay, that's my dog. He's super cute. He's cuter than me. So a couple of things that you'll need to know if you have any questions or anything. Because we have so little time, if you want to tweet me anytime or follow me to keep in touch afterwards, that's great. Just let me know. And then the League's Alive hashtag. The League would love if you use the League's Alive hashtag. Just a couple of disclaimers for you. I'm American, and I'm from New York, and I talk really fast, and I'm a huge Yankees fan, so I will use examples that use the Yankees, and I will try really hard not to use Trump as an example of how not to tweet. I cannot promise that I won't, because some of those examples are really good and they're too hard to pass up, so there you go. So as mentioned, we're going to do a little bit of traditional media, and we'll do a little bit of social media. And if there's more that you want to know, we can dive into either of those topics more offline or actually online anytime, okay? So we want to talk about how do you engage your community on behalf of your community leagues. You need to know your objective. You're going to hear that over and over and over again. So what I'd like you to do is if you could take 60 seconds right now and write down what your objective would be for telling a story. So we're going to do traditional media first. You want to get news of something out there about your league. Write down one thing. What do you want to do? What's your objective? Do you want people to, something measurable, so do you want people to get memberships? Do you want people to come to family movie night? Do you want people to know about a fundraising thing? Make sure that it's measurable and that it's realistic, but think about what your objective is. It'll make it so much easier for you to figure out which form of media that you want to use. Think about your community. Who is your community? If you work for your community league, especially if you've been there for a while, I'm sure you know the demographics of your league. Who's there? What kind of people are they? What matters to them? And then finally, think of what your message is. Make sure that it's concise and it's authentic. Always ask yourself the questions of who, what, where, when, and why, right? Super easy. That's A-Rod. And those are my rules of storytelling. A-Rod's rules of storytelling. So the first one, good storytellers are authentic. Make sure that you are you. Make sure that you're responsible and that you're respectful of who your audience is. Don't lie. Don't try to pretend something you're not. If you don't know the answer to something, just say you don't know and you'll figure it out, right? Be organized. Be prepared. And finally, be direct. In today's world, the attention span is measured at about 8 seconds in social media terms. So if you've got 8 seconds to capture somebody's attention, you want to be direct and concise. And nobody likes blah, 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 blah. At least I don't. So here are your basics. So different mediums are better for different messages. So what does that mean? For your community leagues, do you all have media lists? When you send out your news, do you have a group of people that you reach out to? Yes? Do you have, so what I would recommend is go through those lists. Do you have personal contacts or do you have just news@cbc.ca? Do you have a person that you have a relationship with? Because that's what you want to focus on, is building that relationship and making sure that you're pitching them a story that's interesting to them. Know your objective. It's going to be like a million times that I say that, right? Know your objective and think of what your pitch is going to be. So here's an example of how the objective is catered to the medium. When I worked for the Eskimos, the demographic for the Eskimos is very family-friendly. It's very 35 to 50, it's price point driven. So those are usually the messaging. So we would be on SHED, we'd be on radio stations that would reflect that demographic. But then we brought in Flo Rida. Does anybody know who Flo Rida is? So we brought in Flo Rida for a halftime show. Well, that's not really we're not going to take him on Global to sit on the couch with Mike Sobel to talk about, hey kids, like color your way to a Flo Rida show. So we worked with the other radio stations. So you take your message and you need to look at it objectively. Who's listening to you? Who do you want to hear you? And make sure you target it accordingly. An effective pitch is an honest pitch. So no BS. Don't try to make it sound more interesting than it is. Tell them truly what it is. Okay, remember always that the media needs you as much as you need them. They need content. They can't talk about Trump or bike lanes forever. They need other things to talk about. So give them good content, but make sure that it's honest. And then what you told them that you're going to do, make sure you deliver on it. There's no better way to erode your relationship with the media than to not deliver what you've promised. If you want to bring something that's really innovative and really creative and it's going to engage their viewers, and then you show up with just like 2 free tickets to an Eskimos game and a cheerleader next to you, that's really they're not going to let you come back. So here's some do's and don'ts for you. Know your key message and stick to it. Rehearse. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? By practicing. Be concise, be authentic, and I don't want to say it again. Remember your objective. And then don't go to the wrong medium. You don't want to take cuddly puppies onto the radio. So it's not going to be nearly as compelling when you're on the radio. Nobody can see it. Don't lose sight of your community brand. Remember in the beginning when we wrote down your objectives and we talked about who your community was? Make sure that you're reflecting that and how you're speaking on air, how you're talking to people. When you're out in the community, remember who your constituents are and who you're representing at all times. If you don't know, don't say so, and don't be inauthentic. Okay, so did everybody, do you have your objective that you wrote down? So we're going to go through, and I just want to go through in your mind and walk through the process of booking media. So you have your objective. Does anybody want to volunteer what your objectives were? Anyone?
Get people involved in volunteering. Okay. I think that's a big problem for everybody doing.
And that's something that's easy to measure, right? Because you have a certain base, and then you can identify the growth that you want to measure. Perfect. Anyone else?
Increase corporate sponsorship.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also measurable.
Mine was get people interested and engaged in city building as a place for their community.
Okay, how would we measure that? Memberships, maybe? If you're getting them interested.
This is particular for an issue though.
Can you talk about your issue, or can you talk about it, or?
It's a large development site in our neighborhood. So it's we want our community to be involved with it and understand it and understand the trade-offs as well, because that's just as important.
We're all Holyrood, so if anything.
I was just reading about that. Holyrood.
We're trying to again make sure that we represent the community and they are continuing to engage on the representation that we are doing in the city.
Okay. So maybe objectives would be like how many people attend public hearings, or how many people come to your events, or numbers.
Attendance.
Say as plans are rolled out from the city, as the development plans are coming, you can also sort of measure how people are feeling at each touch point. So when you do open forums or open halls, you can talk to them about, okay, 10 showed up here, but 20 really angry people showed up there. So you can sort of measure it that way, see if the number of angry people goes down.
We're actually doing really good. We take all that.
Anybody from this side? Anybody more? Okay. Mom, do you got anything? That's my mom, everybody. I bring my mom to all my workshops. No, I don't. Okay, so thinking about your objective. So the first thing you want to look at is, who do you want to talk to? Think about, with your example even, how would you best reach your constituents? Who do you want to talk to? Do you want to talk to your constituents? Or do you want the community at large to know about you? More internal versus external. And then think about what medium would be best for that. So in Holyrood, I don't know the demographics of that particular community, but what would be best? Do you know what radio stations they listen to? Do you know, are they global people? Are they CBC people? How would you know? Like,
We really don't know how we do. I mean, I guess we could survey or something like that.
SurveyMonkey's free, super easy, right? Like you could figure out a way to get in touch with your constituents. You know, if you think about the age, you can access the city census and get their age breakdown, right? Get this age breakdown, and that can help you.
So maybe just a question. Neighborhoods are very, very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
They can be quite diverse places because they're made up of people who live right somewhere, not people necessarily with a common interest, a common age, or a common cohort. So those are interesting questions about how you would.
Well, I think the way that, so when you target people by like postal code, for example, while they're very diverse, they tend to attach just by the socioeconomic placement of where neighborhoods are, they tend to become more like within themselves. So if you go onto Canada Post, they go through all of the postal codes and identify brands to each postal code in that kind of neighborhood. So you can say like, okay, around the Terwilliger area, these are these type of people, and the Ward 11 people, I'm in Hazeldean, I'm Ward 11, and so it's that type of community. And so it's just by and large, it's an average. It's not an exact science, but it'll give you an idea. Ward 11, Hazeldean area is a huge CBC place. We're part of Strathcona. We have Linda Duncan and Rachel Notley, so we're like big CBC people in our neighborhood. And even though you look around the neighborhood, and it's a very diverse, visibly diverse area as far as ages and backgrounds, I know everybody knows what's going on because we're all listening to the same radio stations, oddly enough. It just sort of happens that way.
I think the block that I live on is pretty much representative of the whole community. It's like one end of the block, it's all older people with adult children who've moved out. The other end of the block is old people who count down.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem to be a lot in between.
That sounds exactly. Are you in Hazeldean? That sounds like my neighborhood.
So just a clarification question. So you would not, like say for example for the Holy Road thing, you would not recommend a blanket press release or media release to like all traditional media, like CBC TV, CBC radio, Global, Edmonton Journal, you know, like.
I would send it to everybody and anybody that you know, but I would do follow up with the specifics. So if your audience is a big CBC fan, like just using my neighborhood as an example, I would follow up specific. So I would send out the blanket release to everybody, but then I would send a note to Mark Connolly because I know Edmonton AM is the #1 show in Edmonton right now, and my neighborhood listens to CBC. Or I would send a note directly to Portia Clark to get on Radioactive in the afternoon. So you want to target, so you do the wide reach, make sure you get everybody you can, but then target strategically to make sure that you get the people that care to pay attention to your message. So so you have who, and then what and where, kind of the same thing. If you're doing radio, if you're doing television, think about, do you want to do an on-air? If you are the representative, they're kind of out of order because now I'm thinking, identify if you're the appropriate person first. If you are the most passionate person to talk about that project and you know you're the right one, then you can answer the questions about on-air, off-air, pre-tape. What are you most comfortable with? Make sure it's the right person first and then make the medium fit for you. The nonprofit that I started that they referenced in my bio, I know that I'm the best person to talk about it because I founded it 15 years ago in New Jersey. It's a passion project for me. I know no matter how much people get involved, I'm sorry, I just hit the microphone. No matter how involved people get in helping me with this company, and they're part of it, and they've been with me for years, and I know that they care about the cause, but I know that when we talk about it, I will talk about it better than they will, right? Because I know I'm the right person for it. But I also know that I'm terrible on air. I am not a good talker. I say a lot, I talk with my hands, I talk too fast, like I'm not the right person to do it. So I know about myself that I need to pre-tape. So know who the right person is and then identify what works for you, because you want to present yourself, you want to present to the community in the absolute best, most powerful way. So for your preparation, it's pretty cut and dry. You want to write down your key messages and you just want to rehearse it. Look in the mirror. Look at yourself. Rehearse it. I have a tendency when I talk that I pull my chin in. It's kind of like a Jersey, New York sarcastic thing. Like I'll talk out of the side of my mouth and I'll pull my chin in. And then I would see myself on television and I would realize, holy cow, I have like 35 chins and I'm on television. It's like the worst thing ever. So look in the mirror. And practice how you would answer questions that you're not prepared for. So then you are prepared for them. So if you want to talk about the development that's happening in Holyrood, you know how they're going to challenge you. You know how they're going to present it to you. Do you really want to get in the way of progress? Like that type of confrontational thing. How are you going to get around that when that happens? Prepare yourself for it. The better prepared you are, the better radio it makes for, the better television it makes for. Because while it may not feel it in the moment, bad radio is bad radio for them too. So it doesn't come off well. So Mark Connolly stumps you while you're on a question. Doesn't look good for him either. So you want to be a really good guest.
Mark Connolly doesn't really softball questions.
He does. He's a terrible example. Let me see. Ryan Jesperson, since he's moved to Ched, has gotten a little tougher. He got me to say heteronormative when referring to the Eskimos on Ched. And I walked away like, how did he walk me down that path? I don't even know what happened. It's terrible. It's mortifying. My coach was like, what did you say? But always, and take a moment to breathe. It seems kind of brainless, but it seems longer to you than it does to anybody who's listening. During your interview, so here's just a couple of examples of how to deal with a question that comes your way that maybe you don't want to answer, you're not prepared to answer. Let's talk about something I'm a little more familiar with. Yes, but let me tell you about this thing. Or like the real question is, and post something back at them, right? So the example I can give you is when I did work for the Eskimos. And I would go on 6:30 Ched, and Bruce Bowie, who hosts the morning show, and he's a lovely, lovely man. I love his show, and he's very kind and gentle, but he's a huge football fan. And every time I went on his show, he wanted to talk to me about football. So before we went live, I would always say, listen, I'm here to talk about Flo Rida. I cannot talk to you about the head coach situation. I have no idea. No idea. But inevitably, you have an engaging conversation, and they like talking to you, and they're all excited because you're talking about the Eskimos, and then the next thing you know, they want to talk about Chris Jones and what happened during the Grey Cup, and blah, 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 blah. So how do you deflect with that? So I would just say on air, I honestly have no idea. I do know that Flo Rida is playing halftime, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Like we used to have dogs running around on the field during halftime. Now we have Flo Rida. Let's talk about that. I'd love to talk to you about that. I just don't know the answer to that question. So don't be afraid to own that you don't know, but be ready to deflect to get back to your key message. Remember the way I keep saying remember your objective is how you should be. You should be like a dog with a bone with what your objective is. Just keep bringing it back to that no matter what they do. Okay? And then this is my favorite part, the buddy system. I always have a buddy listen to me on the radio or watch me on TV. I've been doing this for 17 years now, and I still have people that will coach me and watch me. Did I talk too fast? Did I get my message across? Could you tell me what my objective was before I went on there? Was my shirt open? Do I have a towel? I have a friend who I used to mentor her and do some media training, and she had been an executive director for years and years and years. She may or may not be the executive director of the Federation of Community Leagues. I'm not saying. But she had a tell that whenever she would go on the radio or on television and somebody would ask her a question about things, she'd say, sure. And that was her way of processing what they had just said, which is a great way to stall for a second to give your mind a chance. But then when you're listening to her, all she says is, sure. Let me tell you about my shirt. Do you want to go for a glass of wine? Sure, but I have to be home. And then when you play it back for her, so once you point it out and then you play it back for her, then she realizes, I just said sure 32 times in a 2-minute hit. So that's what you need. You need somebody to listen to you, somebody who's going to find your tells and tell you what they are, so that way you can work on eradicating them. Ooh, we're already at social media. And I'm right on time. I wrote end traditional at 2:40, and it's 2:40. According to my clock. What is it according to that clock? Okay, so does anybody have any questions about traditional media before we go on to social media then?
Well, not so much about traditional media, but I'm wondering if you can tell us, I find it can be useful to define things by what happens when you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can give us examples of what happens when you don't remember your objective.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, you could find yourself in, the long-term effect would be that it would erode your ability to get any media moving forward. It would lessen your impact in getting your project completed or getting your awareness raised. I have never seen that happen if somebody was on air and just was stone cold forgot what they were talking about, because like I said, they need for you to be good content as well, and they wouldn't let you. Mike Connolly, because they know what you want to come on air to talk about, so let's say you just went completely blank, like Mark Connolly, even though he does softball questions, will kind of walk you there. He'll make sure you're okay.
And we had that in City Hall yesterday, so we all spoke at the public hearing, and you've got 5 minutes to speak. It feels a lot less time than it is when you're actually up there. And so my speech, I'm like, oh, well, we have this tweet from Sekla because I'm talking about our social media. Ask me if you want to know more about that. And then Henderson's like, oh, well, just in case people don't know, so what are the communities in Sekla? And yeah, I think to your point there, they will ask you questions that will help you to stay.
It feels really alone when you're doing it, right? When you're being interviewed or you're giving a speech or you have your talking points, you feel completely alone. And so you kind of have to remind yourself, the biggest thing you could probably remind yourself before you go in and do an interview or to talk to anybody in the media is that it's safe. They need you to be good. They need good content, possibly more than you need to get your message out. So they will it's a safe place. Nobody's trying to get you.
So we don't, for my community, in Richie, we don't necessarily reach out to the media, we don't do a lot of press releases or reach out to the media, but we actually are engaged a lot by the media. And do you have any tips for that? Because what happens is, because it's not us with a plan and a passion, and this is what we're going to talk about, it's media reaching out and everybody's going, no, I can't do it, no, nobody wants to do it. And I'm not the best person to do it. Right. In every case, and I would like to, any tips on trying to get people to step up with that? How do they comfort zone and actually?
My first question would be, what are they asking you about, and should it be you guys?
Yeah, well, it's usually city things like the LRT coming through on 76th Avenue, infill. I think our most recent one was about the Ward 11 debate, or the election specific to the issues of Ward 11.
Right.
Ward 11. And then the one that actually we ended up turning down was some questions about the Mill Creek School being built. We couldn't find anybody on our board to talk to speak to because we couldn't show up on the board, but it's a struggle because it's something that we struggle with a lot, and I don't know about the rest of the community, but we don't have a lot to go with media with. It's usually very focused on our community, so it's not something necessarily with media with, but they'll reach out to us, and that's where we kind of get.
So do you have a group of people who have been identified as the people who are approved to go to media, or is it just you just kind of throw out to see who's
willing in this time?
Yeah. So what I would say is probably you want to identify, say, 4 people.
Okay.
And I would invest in some media training, because media always seems harder than it actually is, but you need somebody who could spend a couple hours and just practice with them.
And do you do this, or do you have?
I do it, yeah, but there are lots of people in town too. I have done this.
I've never even heard of media training, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
know where to start.
And it's pretty prevalent with nonprofits too.
They know about it. Like our community is really media savvy. We have former reporters from CBC. We've got people that come friends on morning shows and stuff. And like sometimes stuff goes up there and it's about our community, but it becomes anxious because residents are that media savvy. So maybe you could try to tap right
residents that maybe if they are part of the board, but
Yeah.
maybe they'd be willing to
Well,
stand
and
with
somebody and.
Or even the federation, because they're looking, because of events like this, that could be something that you ask for with future professional development. Like, could you include some media training for the community leagues? Get something that's provided for you through the league? Does that help? Okay.
Something helps a lot.
Okay.
I just also want to throw in that, so I was in the civics session this morning. I think it's also okay to say, we as a league, we don't feel like we need to speak to this. Like, this is not us.
And I agree.
Or we don't represent, we actually don't represent the community. We don't know what the community thinks about that, I think that's fine. Like, you don't have to be at the beck and call of the media if you don't want to be.
And the Mill Creek School one was a real eye-opener for us because we took a look at it and we had somebody on our board who was very passionate about what they wanted to speak about. But we didn't have agreement on our board of what was our view on this. So we didn't want to have somebody speaking on behalf of the board. So I like the idea of having some residents as well, because then we can kind of say, hey, you can go and speak to this as a resident, versus because it's not something that we can necessarily comment on as a board, like from the board perspective.
And document it too. So as you're doing these little one-offs, if you document what your message was, so if you did end up speaking to that, make sure you document what your key message was, because you'll find that over time that your toolkit of key messages will sort of evolve naturally, and you'll find that you're saying the same type of things all the time, and that'll help you.
How do you go about building relationships with traditional media if you don't already have them established?
Reach out to, so I'm a big fan of just Googling the radio stations and the TV stations. That's how I did that when I first moved to Edmonton. And then started getting onto mailing lists. So you get on like the CTV mailing list and they invite you to the big unveiling thing, and then you have to go and nod and smile while they show you all the wonderful things that's going to be on CTV for the fall season, but that gives you a chance to shake hands, right? Or working with media to host your events. That's a good way to get a free MC, is to partner with a media outlet. So work with the media that way, so then you get to know the on-air talent. The on-air talent's always who you want, because they have producers who pick and choose for them, but you want the on-air talent to fight for you. So if you get Stacey Bratzel to host something for the Community League Day, and she's flipping burgers at your event, she'll start to develop a connection with you. So her producer may not be keen to bring you in for a thing, but if you contact her directly. So that's why I always say, like, get that personal connection, and always try for the on-air guys and gals.
Once they know who you are, you'll quickly end up in their speed dial. Like, Ellie Stolte has my number.
Or if you network with people too, because you'd be like, hi, I know Dave, he's the civics director of Holyrood, I'm the civics director for Calder, so let's talk.
Anything else on traditional media? We're going to get to the fun part. So, I was going to say, that's going to answer this question. It's going to feel super redundant when we get to that slide.
You can connect with
When there's an event going on and they're covering it and they tag you and then you take back and you just become friends with them.
I went to an event a couple of weeks ago and met Janice Irwin, who I have gotten to know on Twitter. She ran for council, I think, a couple of years. I don't even know who she is. And she's like, "You're Joyce from Twitter." It's pretty horrific. My name is not super common, though, so it's pretty easy. So, into social media. We're going to speak pretty specifically about Twitter only because Facebook and Instagram don't have as many tricks of the trade, right? They're closed platforms, so you're able to protect yourself. You are able to speak more intuitively. You don't have to know as many tricks for those two. Twitter, because it's an open platform, tend to have more tricks, so which is the only reason why. I'd be happy to talk to you guys about Facebook and Instagram and another offline. If you want to reach out, I'd be happy to coach you on any of those things. So I call people, that used to say don't be a D-bag, but I didn't know my audience, so don't be offensive, but that just doesn't feel like me. So whenever you see that, you know that I'm thinking don't be a D-bag. That's kind of what... So what is Twitter? So Twitter is an open social media platform. Everybody knows what that means as compared to Facebook. Yes? No? So open means that it's wide open free speech. There's really no protections. Everybody sees everything you say and do. You can have a private account, but unless you're tweeting out nuclear codes, I don't know why anybody would, because that goes against the entire premise of what Twitter was based on. Twitter is the third busiest platform of the social media platforms. So you have Facebook, which is the big mama, and that's got 1.8 billion monthly annual users, so that's pretty intense. Instagram, I think, is, I have to cheat, 700 million. So Instagram is kind of the big, it used to be Twitter, Facebook, then Twitter. Instagram's kind of coming on strong. And if anybody uses Instagram stories, that's why. Instagram stories is kind of swallowing up Snapchat and becoming the thing that everybody's, it's an awesome face. You're like, that's the worst thing ever. Twitter has 320 monthly annual users. So it's a lot of people on there. They average 500 million tweets per day and 2.2 billion tweets a year. There's a lot of content that's being just churned out there constantly. But remember, it's free speech. There's no filters, there's no protection, there's no anything that keeps people out. So here are your basics. I'm sure everybody knows what all of these are. So your handle, your name, right? A tweet is what you're saying. You retweet something when you really like it or you want to sort of de facto endorse it. Favorite, I spelled it like an American. I just realized that. Reply, DM. DM is a direct message. So say you have questions that come out of today's workshop and you want to connect with me directly. Follow me on Twitter, I'll follow you back, and then you can send me a message, and then you don't have to tweet out your question for the world to see. Follow at trends and hashtags. Hashtags are the most amazing part of Twitter and the most hellacious part of Twitter, all rolled into one little sandwich of misery. Okay, so we're going to talk about how do you construct the perfect tweet. So there's a couple of little graphics for you. So basically what it boils down to is brevity is key and use as many visuals as possible. So we have about 4 slides telling you that. So images, tweets that have image links have 2 times higher the engagement rate as just straight content.
Is there a difference between having image embedded versus a link to an image?
Yes, a link is way less impactful.
Right.
Yeah. So you want to put it into your actual tweet itself and embed it versus the old posting on Instagram and having it showing up as Twitter as a link that you have to tweet and then you have to leave Twitter to get to Instagram to see what the thing is, and then you've lost me.
So, for the bit with less than 100 characters, that, I forgot what the word was, that accounts for the uptick in your character.
Yes. So just because everybody knows that we all have 280 characters now, correct? Yes? Yes. Just because you have them, don't use them. Just statistically, it shows that tweets that have less than 100 characters have 17% higher engagement. So even though we all have 280 to play with right now, our attention spans have been eroded so much that we really only want 100. So links are your friends, hashtags are your friends. I always tell people to use the GIF keyboards. That's the best way to do you know what a GIF keyboard is? Everybody know? It's like, that's awesome. You're like, no. I can go around. This is a big group, so it's kind of hard for me to show everybody on your phone. But if you don't know where it is, let me know at the end of the workshop and I'll show you on your phone. But it's a way that you can put a moving image into your tweet. I'm holding my hand like it's my phone. So it's right here. So I'm a big fan of Beyonce GIFs. I will punctuate almost anything I say with Beyonce throwing her hair around or like Beyonce in front of the feminist thing. And that's kind of my brand on Twitter. It's a lot of Beyonce and a lot of Prince. Just be warned. But if you use the GIFs, that's a great way to give yourself some content if you don't have videos, if you don't have visuals. Nobody has the time, well, very few people have the time to create content. Content generation is the bane of any marketer's existence. So GIFs are a great way to work your way around that because you can get something moving, you can get something visual that will get people's attention, but you don't have to go out there and shoot something and edit it and make sure it's right and come up with the idea. Just go Beyonce. Just when in doubt, just go to Beyonce. She'll help you. She's your friend. So does everybody remember that tweet from Ellen a few years ago? It used to be the most retweeted tweet of all time. And I'm on the wrong computer. There you go. And this thing? That's the worst thing ever. So Ellen had all these celebrities and she took a selfie at the Oscars and it was really lovely and it got, 3.2 million retweets? I think it's pretty impressive. And then this guy tweets out that he wants free nuggets from Wendy's and Wendy's challenges him to get 18 million retweets. So there you go.
We haven't even tried their nuggets.
Right? That's the worst. He's verified. Do you see that little blue checkpoint? He's verified because of nugs. That is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. So the first rule of how to write the perfect tweet is that the perfect tweet is engaging. So this is just a little thing. It's sort of like that shampoo commercial where, and they told two friends, and they told two friends, and so on and so on. So Ellen tweeted her record-breaking tweet. And it was like, there's one tweet, and then it was retweeted 2.4 million times, and then 8.1 million people saw it. And that ends up to 32 million views. So if you think about how it works, so you say one thing, and let's say you only have 5 people retweet it, but those 5 people each have 500 followers. And then it goes out that far, and then it goes out that far. So make sure that you have high engagement rates. The perfect tweet is relevant, not like that guy. So who are you on Twitter? What is your brand? Think about what your community league is. So if you are the league, if Beyonce is not your brand, I wouldn't use her. And then that would also take out like the Kardashians. I would take all of that business out. Right, so think about what your brand is. If you are big on pop culture, I use the pop culture. But nobody's brand is, I had really good salmon tonight. It's just not anybody's brand. If you tweet, that's not a tweet that's going to gauge anybody. And it's also, don't try to be a pop culture person, but also don't use outdated quotes. And this is my only Donald Trump one. Because he said something and it was something blah blah blah, this is really great, and then he wrote in all caps not, like Wayne's World reference from the 90s, it's not even a good reference. The president shouldn't be doing Wayne's World. So just be authentic, be yourself. The perfect tweet is visual. The 280 characters have given us some pretty stunning opportunities though. So I say only use 100 characters, but if you're going to be that creative like NASA, I would do that all day long. GIFs are your friend, remember that. Visuals give you twice the engagement as one without visuals. So find a way to get it out there. You could put out there that it's free hot dog day at the community league, but come up with a stunning visual, something that's going to really capture people's attention, and it'll work. NASA wasn't saying anything other than thanks for the extra characters. But look how beautiful that is. I love that tweet. Remember, the perfect tweet is a gift. So think about it. Remember the social and social media. It's about relationships. It's about giving somebody a gift. Think about talking about salmon. Is that giving anybody a gift? No. Would you be friends with somebody who's constantly telling you, like, hey, did you know the community league does all of these things for you and the membership only costs $20? Like, constantly? No. You want to hear about other things. You want to engage. You want to hear funny stories. Treat every tweet like a gift. Why are you sending it? Why are you retweeting it? Retweets are also gifts. So hashtags were invented as a way to sort of organize threads of conversation, organize stories, make things easy to find. So say you want to learn about everything that's happening today, you can't get to all the workshops. Go to the Leagues Alive hashtag, search by Leagues Alive on Twitter, and you'll find out what everybody's tweeting from all of the sessions, not just the ones that you're in. So it's a good way to organize thoughts, organize stories and information. It also identifies what's trending. So you can find the little magnifying glass to see what's trending in your area. It's creepy that your phone knows where you are, but it'll tell you what's trending in Edmonton because that's where we all are. And then look at it, look what's happening. So here's to your question about building community. How do you get in touch with the media people? How do you develop those relationships? Is that just some pointers on how you want to build your community? You want to be authentic. You want to be you. Again, you're not going to build friendships if you're pretending that you know Kim Kardashian. It's just not going to happen. Don't try to be something you're not. Follow the influencers. So once you identify your objective, once you think about what you want to talk about, search on Twitter. Look who's talking about similar topics. Google who the top 50 influencers are in Edmonton. Lists are posted constantly, and they're posted constantly by topic. So I could run you a list of the top 50 social influencers in Edmonton. That's an overarching one. But if you want to find out about who the top 50 influencers are in finance or in community building, you could just Google it and find out who's doing the big work, and then follow them, and then reach out to them and introduce yourself and say, hey, I see that you care about Holyrood. You know, I see that you care about city development. And reach out to them and be authentic. Don't just reach out like a creepy stalker. Reach out, say, hi, I noticed in your timeline that you talk about this stuff. I care about this stuff too. Yay, we should be best friends forever. And then put a GIF about like best friends, and it'll be fine. Search trends. You want to search the trends and make sure that like that's how you're going to get yourself in those feeds. So if somebody's going into the YEG CC feed to see what's happening in City Council, they're going to scroll through and read all that. Don't hijack it. Don't use that trend to sell lemonade. Like, because that's where you would be an e-bag. Listen to what people are saying, but just remind yourself always that trolls are not okay. Abuse is not okay. It's such a big thing in Twitter, and even in the short time that I've been doing these presentations, the amount of abuse and trolling that's happening, it just seems out of control. That's me. The blonde in the middle. That horrible, horrible photo from the 80s. And why that's there. So these are my rules for Twitter, which means take them with a grain of salt. This is what I believe in, but I also thought that hair looked good. So I could be wrong. It may not work for you. You know, find your own voice, develop your own brand. Who are you on Twitter? Don't hijack the hashtags. Don't, you know, like I said, if you're not going to use Black Lives Matter to talk about Hot Dog Day, like it's just, that's a D-bag thing to do. Don't cross-post. So there are ways you can set it up so if you post on Instagram and it'll automatically populate on Twitter and Facebook, and wow, that's so easy and it makes life so much simpler and it saves time, and it's terrible because the rules on Facebook are different than the rules on Twitter, which are different than the rules on Instagram. And you have different audiences on all of those platforms. The people that follow me on Instagram are not the same people that follow me. My mom follows me on Facebook. She doesn't follow me on Instagram. So talk to the people that live where you're speaking to them. Hashtags on Facebook will erode your algorithm ranking. Do not use them. But if you cross-post from Instagram, hashtags work really well on Instagram. So if you just do the automatically post thing, you're going to kill yourself on Facebook, and Facebook has way more eyeballs than Instagram. And gifts are your friend.
What about cross-posting from Instagram to Twitter?
Terrible, 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 terrible. Because, so if anybody has seen when you post Instagram to Twitter and it shows up as a link, it's a URL, you don't even see the image. You have to click on the link and then you leave Twitter, open Instagram, then you get the image. I found this really cool app called Ripple. If you want to play with it, that's what that is. And it's got like bad 80s guitar stuff, and so that was what I made with that, and I didn't think that the audio caught. And it did. And then finally, you want to talk about scams, privacy, trolls. You want to make sure you protect yourself. People say that social media is a cesspool. I think that's a little harsh. I don't think that that's true. I think that there are nasty people out there, and because it's a free speech platform, it's pretty gross at times, but there's also ways that you can affect good and you can do good things with it. Always protect yourself, though, against scams, against trolls. Don't click on weird links. Don't answer people that don't have avatar photos. If they still have the egg, they're not real, and they're just trolling you. And when all else fails, tweet at Jack, just all one word, or at Twitter support, and just keep raising awareness. There was a huge scandal in the States because white supremacists were getting verified, and it was because of the outpouring of rage using the Twitter support and the @Jack, telling people, why are you verifying people who are out there with hate speak? So It's nowhere near as good as Facebook, where you can report and protect yourself, but it's starting to get better. So we were going to practice a tweet, but I don't know if I have time. My name is @JoyceLabriola, and the hashtag is Leagues Alive. And I love Prince, and I love puppies, and I love Beyonce gifts. So send me anything. Let's see what you got. It doesn't have to, we don't have to go through it and look at everybody's now, but I'll answer you and I'll follow back.